Years after that incredibly controversial finale aired, Game of Thrones remains, without a doubt, one of the most fiercely debated television series ever made. I mean, fans are literally still analyzing character arcs, arguing over that ending, and wondering what might have happened if the screen hadn't just cut to black. The cultural footprint of this franchise simply refuses to fade, and because of that lingering, passionate debate, the idea of a potential ninth season continues to generate absolutely massive excitement across the internet. Now, while absolutely nothing has been officially announced, there are some really compelling reasons to believe a return to Westeros could actually work. So let's dive into this explainer and see exactly how an expansion could succeed by focusing on unresolved stories rather than just rehashing old conflicts. Seriously, ask yourself this: what if the Game of Thrones story didn't actually end? The reality is, the world George R.R. Martin created is just way too massive to be neatly tied up with a single, hasty conclusion. There is a staggering amount of narrative potential just sitting right there, waiting to be explored. We've got characters whose journeys feel wildly incomplete, and entire regions of both Westeros and Essos that were left fundamentally changed by the dramatic events of the finale. To really unpack all of this, we need a roadmap. First, we're going to look at the Season 8 problem. Then we'll check out Daario's rule in Meereen, the mystery of Dorne, and Grey Worm defending Nath. After that, we'll talk about plots better left alone, and wrap up with the overall future of Westeros. Okay, so first up, the Season 8 problem. We absolutely have to acknowledge the rushing elephant in the room here, right? Because you really can't talk about a continuation without understanding exactly what went wrong for so many viewers. This all comes down to a fundamental storytelling shift that happened behind the scenes. During the early years, the series had massive, incredibly detailed novels to adapt. We're talking rich character development, complex political intrigue, perfectly careful pacing. But once the television adaptation caught up with the source material, the writers had to rely on broad outlines. And let's be real, a bulleted list of story points is an entirely different beast from a fully written novel. George R.R. Martin typically spends hundreds of pages developing motivations and consequences. Those specific details are what help major television moments feel genuinely earned. Without them, the later seasons ended up rushing through massive developments that desperately needed more time to breathe. Daenerys Targaryen is practically the poster child for this pacing issue. Her rapid transformation remains one of the most hotly debated storylines in television history. Instead of gradually exploring her changing mindset, the story just rocketed toward its conclusion. So the really crucial question is, what if Daenerys had survived long enough to actually rule Westeros? Whether you agreed with her destructive actions or not, it would have been endlessly fascinating to watch her attempt to govern after finally achieving her lifelong goal. Because as we all know, ruling a kingdom is inherently way harder than conquering one. And hey, if you're doubting whether people still care about this specific brand of high-stakes political drama, just look at the massive success of House of the Dragon. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that audiences still deeply crave Targaryen-centric stories. Exploring those heavy themes of power, legacy, and massive burdens completely captures the cultural conversation. It proves fans remain incredibly invested in this universe.
Moving on to our next stop, Daario's rule in Meereen.
This presents a massive political vacuum just waiting for a spotlight. What's really interesting here is the sheer number of wildly unstable outcomes. By the time the original series ends, Daario Naharis has essentially vanished from the narrative. Daenerys left him behind to maintain order while she took her fleet to Westeros, right? Well, his future became wildly uncertain the exact moment she died. Without the Mother of Dragons leading those liberated cities, that political situation is a literal ticking time bomb. Did Daario successfully maintain peace as a peacekeeper? Did rival factions rise up, forcing him to become a rebel? Or did he take advantage of all that chaos to become a conqueror himself? Actor Mikkel Hosman absolutely has the on-screen charisma to carry this storyline, showing us exactly how the wider world reacted to the chaotic events of the finale. Next up, let's talk about the mystery of Dorne. This brings us right back to Westeros, focusing on a region that countless fans feel never truly reached its full potential on screen, compared to the incredible depth of the books. Dorne has always valued independence and maintained its own fiercely unique identity. By the end of Game of Thrones, practically all of the familiar Dornish leaders have been completely wiped out. Yet during that highly important final council meeting, a completely new, unnamed Prince of Dorne just appears out of nowhere. We know absolutely nothing about this guy. This mystery is basically a perfect blank slate for a writer. How is Dorne recovering from years of violent political turmoil? How do they view this unconventional new leadership ruling from King's Landing? It is a massive narrative opportunity just waiting to be tapped. That takes us to Grey Worm defends Naath. Following the emotional thread of the finale leads us straight to this peaceful island to examine one of the show's absolute most complex surviving characters. Let's trace how this builds a powerful, complete timeline for Grey Worm. Throughout the series, he evolves from this rigidly disciplined, emotionless soldier into someone deeply complex. His heartfelt romance with Missandei makes her brutal death absolutely devastating. The finale shows a grieving Grey Worm honoring her memory by setting sail for Nath. But this ending is clearly also the beginning of an entirely new adventure. The island of Nath has historically faced relentless threats from brutal slavers and invaders. Following Grey Worm as the protector of Nath provides no shortage of intense action. It honors the legacy of both Missandei and Daenerys, and honestly, it lets Jacob Anderson take the lead in a brand new, unseen part of the world.
Now we need to cover plots better left alone.
This is incredibly important to discuss because, let's be real, not every fan theory circulating online is actually a good idea for television. Some highly requested storylines would actually heavily damage the narrative integrity of the franchise. Take the massively popular theory of resurrecting Daenerys. The idea is that Drogon carried her body away to be revived by magic. But doing this, it completely reverses the heavy consequences of the finale. If she comes back seeking power, it just repeats old storylines. If she lives peacefully, it completely lacks dramatic impact. Her legacy is much better served by influencing the world she left behind. Another massive theory is focusing heavily on King Bran's reign. Look, Bran is incredibly stable, emotionless, and measured. While that makes for a phenomenal real-life king, it makes for incredibly boring television. High-stakes dramatic conflict is what drives a story, and a calm, all-knowing king simply doesn't provide that necessary friction.
Finally, let's look at the future of Westeros.
As we pull back and look at the big picture, we really have to reaffirm just how incredibly vast the world of Ice and Fire truly is. The success of the current spin-offs proves that the door to Westeros has never truly closed. There is incredibly rich, layered material left to explore, with characters whose journeys are practically begging for proper closure. So, with a world this brilliantly expansive, which unresolved corner of Westeros would you choose to rule? Would you brave the volatile politics of Essos, the deep mysteries of Dorne, or something completely different? The possibilities are literally endless. Thanks for joining me for this explainer and keeping the spirit of Westeros alive.